Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. A really warm welcome to everyone who's joining us on YouTube. So this evening we're here for the launch of the Making Place film. I'm Rebecca Beinart and I work here at Primary. So just by way of introduction, for anyone who doesn't know us, we're an artist-led space based in Nottingham. And we're at the intersection of two residential neighbourhoods called Radford and Lenton that you're going to be hearing a lot about this evening. So the plan for tonight is that I'm just going to do a few words of introduction and then we'll go straight into watching the film, which is 15 minutes long. And then after that, we'll be hearing from a few of the different people who've been involved in the Making Place programme over the years, but also who are involved in current projects that are kind of a legacy of the programme. So after that, we'll have some time for Q&A. So if there's any questions that are coming in via YouTube, we'll be able to address those. So just before we start to show the film, I wanted to explain that this film was made based on the Making Place exhibition that happened last year. And so there's like lots of things in the last few years. There's been quite a long kind of stretching out of time. So the film presents projects that were, the exhibition presented projects that were made in the three previous years to that. And we're now showing you this film of the exhibition. But as I say, we'll be kind of updating you on what's been happening since. And before we start, I also wanted to say a really big thanks to everybody who's been involved in the Making Place programme over the years. There's so many people, I'm not going to name them all, a lot of them will be named in the film. A special thank you to Rhys Straw for making the film and to Jim Brower, who's doing the behind the scenes technical wizardry this evening. I also wanted to thank and welcome Charlotte, Chiara, Ismail and Tom, who are here with me this evening and will be talking after the film about the projects that they're working on. And finally, before we start, I want to say a big thanks to all the funders who've supported this programme over the years, and a particular thank you to Esme Fairbairn Foundation, who've been really supportive of Making Place throughout the whole programme up to this point. So I think I'll leave it there. We will screen the film. Really glad to have people joining us here tonight, and we will carry on talking afterwards. Thank you. Welcome to the Making Place exhibition. It was put together to celebrate and share 3 years of the Making Place programme, which is our long-term programme working with local communities, artists and designers in the local areas of Radford and Lenton. The projects that have been part of the Making Place programme have explored different issues that affect our neighbourhoods and our lives and the spaces that we inhabit. Through these projects, we've worked with dozens of artists, many different community organisations and hundreds of participants. So we want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's been involved so far. This exhibition gathers together material from all of the different projects and creates a kind of collage with many layers of images, text, sound and video. As a socially engaged and publicly cited programme, there's no way that we could bring everything into an exhibition format. So the exhibition instead offers you fragments from all the projects and hopefully a way into getting a flavour of the projects that have happened. It also brings together material that has not been seen together before. So it brings things into conversation and creates new connections and meaning between these projects that have happened over a 3-year time period and across many different locations in the neighbourhood. Running through the exhibition, the soundscape includes excerpts of voices and more abstract sounds that come on intermittently.
The soundscape for the Making Place exhibition was a 7-hour-long soundscape that lasts throughout the whole exhibition. So from the morning when the building opens to the late evening. There was a wide range of voices and field recordings and pieces of music which were there to complement and accompany the exhibition.
My father used to work there, right, and it was like looking for a job at the time, but job was then easy to get, right, so if I didn't really sort of get one at Raleigh, I would have got one somewhere else, for the simple reason it's nothing to compare with what it is now.
The soundscape really paints a picture of the depth and the richness of Bradford and Lenton and represents that in sound, which is really interesting. The voices from the different projects really animate and bring forward the histories and the depth of the histories, which kind of all coexist in this complicated way and a meaningful way. And they inform us about our lives today, and they give us information about who we are and about how that reflects, where we're going as a community, or as individuals within a community as well.
I was born in Lenton on Balfour Road, I don't know if you know, that's near Ilkeston Road, in 1982. I remember the corner shop on the bottom of my road. There used to be a paper shop. And then I went to Douglas Nursery just after my 3rd birthday.
Inside the structure, you'll see a series of projections featuring portraits from projects that have recorded local histories, documenting aspects of local heritage that are less visible. The portraits appear at randomised positions and timings, so that you'll meet a different combination of people depending when you enter the space and how long you spend there. This set of portraits are photographs taken by Vanley Burke as part of When We Worked at Raleigh, a project led by Nottingham Black Archive. When We Worked at Raleigh documents the experiences of members of the Windrush generation and their descendants who worked for Raleigh Industries in Lenton from the 1950s to the 1980s. Over the course of the project, Nottingham Black Archive collected oral histories documenting arrival and day-to-day experiences and contributions to challenging racism and increasing workplace equality in one of Nottingham's most famous industries.
They used to be on the tire fitting, but then it get too heavy for me. And they put me in a shop where they do import and export. What's that called? Sturmy Archer. The import and export. And that's where I worked until I left, 1981.
Photographer Ben Harriott worked with gardeners from Radford's mill allotments, some of whom have been working this patch of land for over 50 years.
I must have started in the 60s, coming down on my own, well, with my dad, and then we got married in 2 years before, and it took off from there. We still come down, but as I say, we try and get down 3 times during the summer because of watering.
In 2018, an exhibition, Meal and Walk, led by artist Jagdish Patel, brought together stories from the South Asian diaspora through photography and archival material, focusing on people who'd settled in Nottingham and used their activism to challenge everyday racism in the city. Jagdish worked with elders to gather stories, archive material, and make this series of portraits.
This place where Primary is the heart of where the early migrants who came here in the 40s, 50s and 60s lived. It was the heart of it, not just the Asian community but the black community as well. And what we have wanted to do with the project is it's partly about uncovering, but it's about unsilencing, because there's a whole collection of stories and a whole collection of stories of how people lived and the infrastructure they built up in terms of supplementary schools, in terms of activism, in terms of help with welfare, that was located in informal places around here. So people would meet in the pubs, they would meet in the parks, they would meet in factories. And We talk about it in our own communities, but we've not really talked about it more broadly, and a lot of the younger generation don't know about it. So this project was really as much about uncovering as it was about unsilencing. And a big part of the project was talking across generations and across communities. So we had walks where people talked and told stories. We had meals where people walked and told stories. We had a couple of meetings, and it was more about people learning from the generation who were here exactly what did go on and how it went on.
Designer Babak Hashemi-Nezad collaborated with local residents to explore the question, what is Lentonness? The responses gathered so far feature in a public artwork that takes the form of an LED sign. This combined definition of the neighbourhood includes a growing list of experiences, observations and characteristics collected from across Lenton. The sign was installed on the side of the Savoy Cinema in 2019 and is now relocated to the Crocus Cafe on Lenton Boulevard. The different definitions give a rich picture of the many things that Lenton means to local people, from long-term residents, elders and children, to new communities and students, at a time when the neighbourhood has undergone significant change. They offer snapshots of place, memories, humour, poetry, loss and hope. Artist Chiara Dell'Erba invited pupils at Edna Giold's Academy to map their locality, reimagining the area from the perspective of plants. Through a series of workshops, they created the Chimera Plantarium, a visual, imaginative archive where human and non-human forms come together as hybrids, half plant and half human. The result of their collaborative process became material for a new public artwork for Church Street that was launched in October 2019.
The Chimera Plantarium started as a response to a public art commission between Primary and Nottingham City Council. It's called Chimera Plantarium because I was looking at how we can enhance the relationship between human beings and multi-species. So I was looking at what kind of creature and what kind of relationship we can create within a sort of hybrid form, which from this point comes the word chimera. So this looking at this mysterious, almost incredible creature. And plantarium is because I've imagined Lenton area as a sort of a kind of lab or observatory that was also remind to planetarium. So looking at how we can create this relationship with the local ecosystem, but think about also kind of more globally.
I think in terms of why we want to be involved as a school was it's an opportunity for our children to get out into their local environment and to really get to grips in terms of what does their local area look like and start to evaluate it and analyse it. Because for many of our children this is where they've born, this is where they've grown up, and they spend a lot of time in this environment. And part of the project was in terms of them going around looking at some of the flowers and plants that were growing, but also looking that actually there's quite a lot of concrete, a lot of buildings, and yeah, sort of a lot of those grey, black colours and how can we make that brighter? How can we make that a more attractive environment for them? And I think that really led into the project in terms of the mural.
I think that the mural is amazing. It lights up the place, and I like the shapes and it's not what you expect from an art piece. It's like it gives people different opinions of what they think, and that's really good.
I think it's a place that you can enjoy and you can feel happy and safe in, and not get judged by your appearance or religion or anything.
I noticed the first time that was there, the mural was there, and people were walking by and looking at it, and they were amused by it in a way. They were amused by it. They really did like it.
Children from Mellors Primary School worked with artist Joe Wheeler to map the world on their doorstep in Radford. They discovered local histories and places and explored themes of home, work, play, shopping and worship. As part of their research, they interviewed each other, collected stories from family members, visited local businesses. In summer 2018, the children led a playful guided walk for the public to share their knowledge and their own experience of the neighbourhood.
So I play here at John Carroll Park.
Yeah.
And I play here, and what we play is we play Dobby off ground, and we jump on all the swings, and before she gets us, we have to be on that swing and we have to be going round in a
In 2018, artist Sam Metz worked with young people from Nottinghamshire Clubs for Young People through a series of workshops during the half-term holiday. Together, they explored local streets and experimented with mark making, printing, mapping, sound, photography and projection. Using images developed through the workshops, Sam created a digital animation. This was designed to be layered with an analogue projection using cinefilm that had colour and pattern applied by participants. When This Tree Blossoms began in 2018 as part of a national project exploring how we can envisage positive futures in response to climate change and environmental change. The first event took place when artists Frank Abbott and Rachel Jacobs followed the blossoming of the cherry trees in Christchurch Gardens across the road from their studios at Primary. They invited local people to meet together on Sunday the 22nd of April under the trees when they were in full blossom to talk about the future. The project has continued with the annual invitation, "When this tree blossoms, we will meet here to talk about the future."
Okay, Rachel, operate the machine.
The idea of the Making Place exhibition was always to create a space where we could reflect on projects from the past, but also invite people in to have conversations about the future. Given the impact of the pandemic, our experience of public spaces and green spaces in the city has really changed. And it feels more important than ever to find different ways of doing things, new ways of getting together, and for communities to have a say in what happens to their neighbourhoods. Sorry, I was just on mute. Hello, welcome back, and thank you for staying with us and watching the film. It hopefully has given you a bit of an overview and an insight into many of the projects that were in the Making Place exhibition. That was last year. It was disrupted due to the pandemic, and so we're really happy to be able to share the exhibition and the projects through this film tonight. And for anyone who's kind of just joining us a little bit later, we are going to now have a bit of a conversation with some of the artists and collaborators who've been involved in those projects and who are working on projects now. So I think it's really great to kind of re-watch the video, although quite painful for me to have to watch myself. But I think just to say that there's so many things that kind of aren't included in that. There's so many details and so much richness to all of the different projects that were spoken about in the film. And as we go through the conversation, I'll probably start adding some links for people to find out more about some of those projects. And there's also the opportunity, kind of once we've finished talking about the current work, to ask some questions. So just letting people know now, in case you've got anything that's come up through watching the film or whilst we're speaking. So you can use the YouTube chat and just pop your questions in there. And then kind of once we've finished doing the talking, we will come to that and see if there's any questions that we can address and answer. So as ever with our online events, we ask people to just interact with respect for each other and kindness, and to listen well as well. So please do ask questions or make comments in the YouTube chat if you're watching. So with me tonight, I'm very, very pleased to welcome Charlotte Tucker and Ismail Kokon, who are both working together on the Ronald Street Playground-based project called Build, Create, Play. So the playground's just opposite Primary, and they will tell you more about it and more about the work that we've been doing over there. So that's a project that's so current that we were there this afternoon. And in a moment, I'll ask them to tell you more. So we'll probably come to them first, as it sort of feels like the most current thing that's happening right now. Also really happy to welcome Chiara Delerba, who you met in the video, and who was working on the Chimera Plantarium project and is still evolving that piece of work. And also welcome to Tom Harris, who worked with us, has worked with us in many ways throughout the Making Place, but worked on the podcasts that were part of the Nottingham Black Archive led when we worked at Raleigh Project, and is continuing to work on another sound-based aspect of an exhibition that's coming up, which we'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. So I will hand over to Charlotte and Ismail, if that's okay. You just need to unmute.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah, and thanks for the invitation to be here this evening to share the project that, yes, we were working on today, this afternoon. So Build, I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. So Build, Create, Play, yes, is a project happening at Ronald Street Playground with local families and Nottingham City Council. And it started just before the pandemic in 2019, and then myself and Ishmael have picked it back up last year, and we were running workshops throughout the summer. And Ronald Street Playground is very old and neglected. It was built in the 1980s. And so what we've been doing there is kind of activating the space through play and activities and materials to have conversations, well, to meet families actually, to start with, to build relationships with families who live around the playground, and also to then have conversations about how this playground can be upgraded and changed. The City Council are going to upgrade it, and so it's for the families and children and young people to influence actually how the space is changed. We've also been working with the Toy Library, so they've been coming to the sessions as well, bringing games and different activities, and it's been using these games and the materials to have those conversations and to generate ideas as well. So and the programme's really responsive. So each week the activities would and the materials would change. So we've had chalk and bamboo canes to build dens, Play-Doh. We also gave young people a handheld video camera so they could go around and record and share what they liked about the playground, what improvements they would make, where they've seen, where they've other playgrounds or where else they've played that they would like to bring into this space. So it's like a consultation conversation using play and the space. And then and also part of its responsiveness is through by listening to what families and children are saying. So one thing they were saying is because there's no lighting around the area, it feels quite unsafe at night and also in winter. And so then, although we can't immediately change that, what we did do in February half term was introduced light play as our theme at the here we go at primary. So because it was in February, rather than having it the first session at the playground, we had it here at primary again to build that relationship, and had lots of activities here as well. So Ishmael, I'm going to hand over to you to share.
Thank you, Charlotte. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlotte, for all the explanation. It is a great opportunity for me to be part of the Build, Create and Play project. We have been doing lots of activities, but I'll just say a few activities we have done so far. So we did some clay face making the playground. The children was making different monster face or different type of face and character, and they was putting on the wall, on the trees. Also, we did a workshop with the foam noodles game, painting with the powder. It was very, very interesting to see how children was very expressive. Making decoration with drawings and string, collage with a cell phone, making design with reflective tape. So reflective tape was one of the good one because it glows at the night as well. So they really enjoyed. Building shelter with the canopies. It was real fun to see how they was playing. Chalk painting. So one of the girls, she was making fish all over the playground. So his whole playground became a seashore. And making flags, it was interesting as well. It was held in a primary gallery. They're bringing their own flags from different backgrounds. It was nice to see. They know their identities and colors. Yeah. Journey sticks, another journey stick was one of them best. I think they really like it. They're playing with the journey sticks. And what else? So we did also, children today was making photograph themselves. They was taking photographs. They was really enjoyed. One of the girls, I was asking, oh, what do you like the most today? Oh, I like to take photographs of others, which is great. And placard, they was making playground, how they want to change, how they would like to see about the playground, what kind of elements they need. One of the placard is saying we need a new playground because children needs fun. And they was playing cricket. It's lots of different type of activities. We made streamers inspired by the shape of the playground. We took to the school and then we bring in the playgrounds and lots of placards. They was making, it was really joyful, but it's great to see how children bring their ideas and how they're really craving for making change to the playground because they love to see themselves there a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant, thanks. Yeah, and we, yeah, thanks Ishmael. Yeah, it's been really important to have lots of different activities to have those conversations about improvements that can be made, and yeah, like with the placards of them actually holding them up and taking photos. So the project shifted slightly because the original plan was for the playground to be upgraded this year, and actually that's not happening. So now it's become kind of more a protest or a campaign about really amplifying the voices of the children and families who really want this playground to be upgraded, and we've been working with them since last year now to have a different dialogue with the City Council, or to think how we can ensure that this definitely happens. We also worked with a local primary school as well, who generated ideas onto big pieces of cardboard and fabric, and then we took those onto the playground as well. So designing and then using those designs to physically actually change the space as well. So we're hoping to continue the project this year, and hopefully soon there'll be an upgraded playground that has been influenced by the local families who live by it. Thanks.
Thank you both. It's really great to just kind of hear about the project that's currently happening. And I think, you know, from the whole Making Place programme, there was sort of 3 central questions that we were trying to ask, and one of them was, who imagines the city? And it feels like this project really tries to take that into not only who imagines, but who ends up shaping the city and what happens to it. And as I'm sure many people have experienced, the sort of the realities of trying to make any kind of changes in public space are quite challenging and quite slow, and sometimes quite frustrating. But it's been really amazing to have this sort of long-term engagement and conversation going on really since last summer, and through this process that's been described. So we can come back to talking about that a bit more. And also, as I was saying, just, you know, if you've got any questions or thoughts as we're talking things through, please do add them into the YouTube chat. So I think next, if it's okay, we'll go to Chiara, because we've already heard quite a bit about the origins or the first phase of Chimera Planetarium. But I will pass over to you to tell us a bit more about kind of how it happened and what's happened since.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you for inviting me today to be part of this talk. Well, a lot is happening. Is happened after the first, the initial Chimera Planetarium. It was very interesting for me to be part of all the development of Making Place program, because I still remember when we took part of a sort of symposium to understand how to shape the program, or what kind of question the program would, what kind of provocation the program would have work around. And one of the questions that I remember was how we can imagine the city, but also is imagination a democratic tool? And I think this question is being kind of the thread that is been on all the development of the Chimera Planetarium. I would like to give a little bit of a bigger explanation about the name, which came from the necessity to trying to remap, in particular, the Lantern area from the perspective of urban plant, because also at the time I used to live nearby, so I used to walk quite around that area, and it was very striking for me the fact that there were not much of normal manicure green spaces, but actually there were quite a lot of neglected green spaces. And I started to imagine how would have been to remap that area from the plants that I was encountered during my walks. So the project developed through a series of workshops that I've delivered in collaboration with the Edna Geold Academy in a primary school in London. And it's been incredible because since the beginning, I actually co-prototype the workshop with year 4 and year 5 pupils of the Edna Geold Academy. And the idea of not only delivering a group of workshops that were influenced the final mural, but actually let the pupil actively be involved in co-designing the mural, but also co-designing as well what I called like an alternative guide to the area in forms of this a collaborative herbarium, which then has been also featured in the exhibition. It's been very, very interesting. And actually, the link from this project has been developed throughout the next year as well, because the school has asked for a second commission with the second mural, but also the Chimera Plantarium start to kind of be a bit more nomadic and develop the mapping of the area and how people that live in the area were imagining the urban space from the perspective of urban plant as well. That this has led to also collaboration with the Crocus Cafe. So again, it's kind of the Chimera Plantarium start to kind of walk parallel with Making Place program as well. So at the moment there is a mural that I co-develop with the people that work at the Chimera at the Crocus Cafe, and we look at how we could incorporate wild edible urban plant in what is the menu of Crocus Cafe. After that, I've decided to also take 6 months period of research to see if I could develop a model to, again, thinking about neglected green spaces as and how we can give our input, can advocate for change in terms of how we interact with plants, but also how through this interaction we can imagine a different way of imagining the neighborhood, really. This 6 months research and collaboration with other practitioners has taken the form of a sharing event at Primary last October called the Chimera Plantarium Weekend. And through different collaboration, basically I test this model that become a sort of open source lab where I've asked other collaborators to work with me, and in that case was Phytology and Rashika Ahmad and Alexandra Tseritaki. Then again to create this model that is basically growing, and at the moment I'm working with Mellers School, primary school, in developing an ongoing archive of plant protest posters. So how, thinking about plants, we can advocate for change in the neighbors, and this archive then will take form of an exhibition that hopefully will be tour also in Italy this summer to create a kind of a bridge between the two countries. So that is what I am up to now.
Thank you, Chiara. It's really brilliant to hear about, and I think, I don't know if we said already, but right at the start of how this project came about, the whole project was co-commissioned with children from the school. So they selected Chiara's proposal from other artists. And as Chiara described, they were kind of really deeply involved in collaborating and co-designing the artwork. And I think that one of the things that's been really interesting to see over the years through these different projects happening, and that we were kind of trying to encapsulate in the exhibition in some way, is the relationships that kind of cross over between different people who've been involved in different type projects or bits of work, and the way that I suppose some of the same children might have kind of experienced some different kind of projects or ways of working. And we've, with working on the playground just now, we're sort of meeting some of the children that we worked with maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And there's just that kind of the repeat and the connections, which is obviously what the hope is, that kind of just keeps on growing. Okay, so the other aspect that you saw in the film that's kind of been a really big part of the Making Place programme relates to the kind of question we were asking, what do places inherit? So thinking about all the multiple different histories, and particularly in neighbourhoods like Bradford and Lenton, there's a lot of histories that might on the surface be invisible or not kind of so widely known about. And so there's been some amazing work done on histories and different kinds of histories, but as you heard in the film, Nottingham Black Archive led on this really rich project that was called When We Worked at Raleigh. And so you heard about that in the film, but I just wanted to hand over to Tom to talk a little bit about your experience of collaborating on that project with the podcast that you made, but also how that then came into the soundtrack for the exhibition. And then I'll just add that kind of following on from Nottingham Black Archives project and that really, really rich oral archive, we worked with them to commission a contemporary artist. So Maybelle Peters was commissioned to make some new work kind of based on that history. So Maybelle started work with us on that last year through a kind of quite a long-term period of research and development that started with close listening and kind of moved into this attention and absorption, which has, from this starting point, she's been developing new animation and moving image work and installation, which will be coming back as an exhibition at Primary later on this year. So there's another kind of a loop around. So I'll pass over to you, Tom.
Hiya, how you doing? Can you hear me okay? Good. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for putting all this together. It's brilliant we can have this conversation live on YouTube in a multi connected way, which is really sweet. So the Raleigh project was started in 2019 in May, and I came. Panya invited me to do the editing and the podcast to turn the research that she collected through interviewing people who worked in the Raleigh factory between the 50s and the 70s, and we turned all of these recordings, which was quite a lot of audio material. I think maybe she interviewed between 25 and 30 people, and each one was an hour long. So there's a lot of material to get through. And being the editor and listening through all the recordings was a lot of material to take in, which really allowed me to have a lot of intimacy with the recordings and really listen deeply to the experiences that the people who worked at Raleigh had during them times and their perspectives, their attitudes, and the way that they saw life. There was a lot of quite heartwarming material which made you feel uplifted, because people's hearts weren't so worn, or we were talking about lots of difficult things, but it didn't feel like it was so heavy for the people. So that was an uplifting attitude, and I felt connected to the project through my grandparents, really, because they came here to Nottingham in the 60s as part of the Windrush generation. I have a close relationship with them, and that it felt like quite familiar conversations that I'd have with them about their lives and their working lives when they were my age, or when they were going through their working periods. So that was the Raleigh project, which kind of found its way into the Making Places exhibition, and I had the chance to edit and create a soundscape for that exhibition, and that sort of weaved its way nicely into the soundscape there.
Thanks, Tom. Did you, I know it's quite new in terms of working with Maybelle, but did you want to say anything at all about that, or is that still to come?
I think it's still to come, but it's myself and Jim, who's somewhere behind the technical situation here, are going to be collaborating on that. So that's still to come. We're still really working out what's going to happen there. So.
That's great. Yeah. So that's just to clarify. So I've shared a link to some information about the project with Maybelle Peters in the YouTube chat. And my colleague Jade Foster is working closely with Mabel to develop that exhibition, and Tom and Jim here are going to be working on some of the kind of technical side of how the, well, not just technical, the creative and technical side of how the kind of multi-projection, multimedia sound elements of this thing all kind of work together, and it's going to be a really exciting project. So there'll be some more information about that kind of about the exhibition and the plans for that, and how it also then kind of links back to the original archive that'll be going onto Primary's website soon, and look out for more information about that later on in the year. So that will be launching, I think, in September this year, and just kind of note on the quite long timeframes of everything. That's because at the moment we're having quite a lot of very exciting capital development work at Primary to make the building kind of more accessible, visible and open. So for anyone who knows the site, it's undergoing quite a lot of change at the moment, but then we're really excited about sort of opening fully with that exhibition in the kind of late summer, autumn time. So I'm really grateful for all of you for sort of joining tonight and for sharing a bit about the work that you've been doing. I am just having a look if there's any questions coming through on YouTube, and there isn't so far. So I'm going to just say again, if anyone does have any questions or comments, just pop them in the chat. And if we don't have any questions at the moment, then one thing is to invite any of you to respond to each other if you wanted to, if there was something that kind of came up where you had a question or something that you wanted to clarify or kind of point of connection. So I'll leave some space for that. And I'm then also going to mention a couple more things that are happening currently. Nothing immediate. So just sort of wave or shout if there is something that you want to chip in with. So I guess that's, excuse me, I'm just trying to navigate with multiple screens. A couple of the other things that I wanted to talk about. So Making Places obviously was just like one strand of the work we do at Primary, but it's been quite a big and ongoing long-term programme that's, I guess, has always been about trying to build long-term relationships, and for those relationships and these sort of projects that we've been talking about to then shape what the organisation does and how we make decisions. And I think what's been really exciting to see over the last few years, despite all of the challenges and how we've kind of all had to get through everything that the pandemic has thrown at us and everything else that's been happening, that this sort of method of an approach of trying to work with reciprocity, so like not just as an arts organisation going out and kind of delivering projects, but that a lot of these things have happened through conversations that have gone multiple directions, and through I suppose through us being here for a long time and developing relationships where there might be local community groups or schools or people that we know who live around the corner who say, well, we want to kind of draw attention to this, or we want to explore this in a different way, or we want to document this. That do you know anyone who's got an audio recorder? Do you know anyone who can take photographs? So this is the sort of way that Making Places evolved, and that's been really exciting to develop that. And I think that there are some of the projects that we're working on at the moment which are kind of even more in that direction. So I wanted to mention the Nourishment programme. So this is a cyclical programme, so it kind of is happening through different seasons throughout the year. And it's another long-term strand of work that we're doing, and it focuses on food justice, nourishment, and kind of ideas of sustenance and sustainability. But the way that programme's working is that each season we're doing some different types of activities and events, but then we're also having meals and conversations through which we sort of decide what happens next. And so at the end of the first season, we did something we called a digestion session. So there was like a chance to think about what had been learnt, and then kind of what people wanted to do next. And all of that work's come out of both the relationships that are developed through Making Place, but also some of the work that's happened around food injustice over the last couple of years and how we can redistribute resources. So I wanted to mention that, and then I also wanted to mention that there's lots of other things going on at Primary, and if you're in the neighbourhood at the moment, you might see a big new installation on the front of our building that faces Ilkeston Road, and this is a project by South African collaborative Made You Look. So I'm going to add a link into the chat just so you can follow up on that. And if you are in the area, then please do come by. You can see it from the street, and you can also come and visit on Saturdays to kind of come into the installation, which is also a garden. And I'm going to see if anyone's got anything else to say whilst I find that link. Thank you to David, who said that this was really nice. And it's a real pleasure to sort of share the work and the many complex projects that have been going on and how they've developed. So, yeah, I am going to just share this link.
Yeah, I was always amazed about how wide the whole project was, really, and all the different assets that were coming together was kind of overwhelming and mind-blowing for me, you know, and I really enjoyed to sort of experience that.
That's great to hear. Just going to share this link. There we go. That's the link in the YouTube chat to the Made You Look project, which is current. And yeah, I think we'll probably start to wrap up now if there's not any more questions coming through or any more things that people want to add. I think there's one more thing I was just going to mention, which is that there's, you know, that we were talking about the project with the playground and the kind of really amazing and deep kind of imagining that has come through those sessions, and the way that I think that it's been really brilliant to work with the two of you and see the way that you've used creativity and play as a way to, I guess, sort of find out about the way that children use that space. So, you know, that's sort of a very different approach to doing a conventional consultation. And yeah, I think it's just, as I said earlier on, there's both like really wonderful things and, you know, challenges about engaging with in public spaces and how, like, the realities of how much communities can actually change the spaces that they use. And I think that one of the other things I wanted to mention is just that Radford as an area has really lost so many community assets in the last, well, lots of years. So quite recently, the John Carroll Leisure Centre shut down, and just now there's been a kind of consultation out about the possibility of some of the local libraries, including the Radford and Lenton Library, shutting. So as a kind of final plug, especially for anyone who lives locally, I'm going to put a link into the chat for the consultation about the libraries, and it would be really, really good if anyone has the time to kind of respond to that, because yeah, you know, communities need spaces, and the more they get taken away or kind of run down, I guess the worse things are. So yeah, I'll share that link. And just looking at another comment that's come into the chat. So David has said, the section about the park makes me think about how the relationship between two partner organisations changes during a project when one side is interacting directly with the local community. Yeah, thank you for that. That's a really good point. And yeah, it's kind of complicated when, you know, you might be, when you're interacting very directly, but you don't necessarily have the sort of power to make the sort of change or the finances to make the change immediately. So there's something about that dynamic, but it's a conversation that's kind of, you know, we're keeping on with, and yeah, it's sort of necessary, even if it's sometimes very slow. Okay, I'm going to just find this link for the libraries. I'll add that in. Anyone else? Okay, and yeah, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of you for joining this evening. This will be online for people to watch afterwards. The film will be on Primary's YouTube channel and on our website, so you can watch it and share it whenever you want to. And finally, I've said it before and I'll say it again, that just a massive thank you to everyone who's been involved in all aspects of Making Place, and who continues to be involved in Primary. And, you know, the invitation is there to basically, I suppose, kind of help shape what it becomes next, because as the site's changing, so it should be a lot easier to come in and use the spaces here. And so we're really excited about more of you coming in, using the spaces, and also kind of thinking about how to use this space in the future. So not just the kind of, you know, the playground over the road, but also the outdoor spaces and indoor spaces at Primary. We've got a big old school playground on the site, which has kind of been transformed into a garden. And there's lots of potential and lots of exciting things coming up. So we will leave it there for this evening. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone has a good evening. Okay, take care.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye-bye.